this is Fiber Spider. This is just a quick note before the actual tutorial slash formula begins. I just wanted to let you know that this is not a typical video for me, in that this is not specifically a pattern. This is how to come up with the formula for crocheting this beret. And so what I would strongly suggest is to watch the whole video through so that you don't start and then find, ooh, where am I at, as far as the process goes, because I'm involving different yarns and so forth. Gauge is an important factor of this piece. So, I would strongly suggest watch the whole thing through and then actually start with your stitching. To give you a better understanding as to how you can go about creating a beret of your very own. All right, so listen, I hope you enjoy, and let's get to it. Okay. Greetings, my little yarnivores. Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. Today, I'm going to show you how to crochet a beret. And for this project, I wanted to use a really different yarn. I love the colorways that this brand produces. This actually is Unforgettable by Red Heart. And for me, it's a little bit pricey, but I absolutely love the colorways. And so this one, it's Polo. Absolutely love the colors. And the only thing that I really do not care for with this particular yarn is that because it is so fibrous and so fuzzy, you can even see the fuzzy. Because it is so fuzzy, when you're stitching, the stitches, they lock together. So if you need to rip out a stitch, it's very, very difficult. I will stress that from the get-go. So I'm going to use this yarn because I've done a test run with this pattern, and I came up with it myself. But you may want to use a cleaner yarn, more straightforward, less fibrous, but I love these colors and I really want to give it a go. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so for this project, you're going to need a size, are we going to get focused? There we go. H crochet hook, yarn needle, of course, pair of scissors, tape measure will help, and some scrap yarn, because we're going to be doing this project as a spiral, so it will help you to keep track of where you're at. So we're going to start with our slip knot, of course, and then we're going to chain up 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do a slip stitch into the first chain to create a ring, like the basis of many hat patterns. And so we're going to do 12 single crochets within the ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so what you're going to want to do actually is take your hook, put it through the last stitch that you just made, get your scrap yarn, and this I'm going to cut because it's really long, and you pull your scrap yarn through that stitch to act as a place marker. Makes it a lot easier in the long run, let me tell you. All right, so I'm just going to cut that because I don't need quite so much. And so that is the beginning of our first round. Okay. On to round 2, huh? Okay. Okay, so for round 2, we are going to do 2 single crochets into each stitch. So we're going to go from 12 to 24 in one fell swoop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you get the gist. That's that's how the rest of this row is going to go, just 2 in each, and I'll meet back up with you when I'm done with this round. Okay. Okay, so I'm up to the last 2 stitches of round 2, and yes, you are going to go into where that yarn is with 2 more stitches, and then you're going to bring the yarn up into that stitch. So put your hook through, and then grabbing the long end, of course, of your scrap yarn, you pull your yarn through, and that's the end of round 2. Now at this point, what I like to do is I like to take the scrap end of the project yarn, and I like to run it through all of these stitches here, and then give it a nice pull, cinch it closed, so that we don't have to worry about this getting tangled up. Alrighty, and so I'm going to do that, but also for the next round, round 3, we are just going to do 1 stitch into each stitch all the way around. So I'm going to do both of those things. It's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Going to do both of those things, and then I'll meet back up with you when we are ready. Okay, so round 3, just 1 stitch in each stitch. So you're going to maintain that 24, and I will explain why. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, now here comes my explanation. See, the thing is, for a beret, which needs to lay flat, we need to have a very slow progression of increasing. So every other round is an increase round. So you do an increase round, then a regular round with just 1 stitch in each stitch. And that's how it's going to continue to progress outward until you reach the diameter that you need to have, for, a nice full-sized hat. Now, this, of course, a person's head is not this big. However, on the other side, that's where the actual opening is, naturally. So you want it to come out a couple of inches out from your head. Now, the actual circumference that you need to worry about, of course, is how big your head is, and we will get to that as well. So right now, we did our 12 stitches, doubled to 24 stitches, and then we did 1 stitch in each stitch. So now for the next round, let me just get my loop here. For the next round, we're going to do another increase because the last round it was just 1 stitch in each stitch. So for this next round, we're going to do 2 stitches in the first stitch. So 2 single crochets into the first, and then 1 single crochet. So it's increments of 3. So we did 2 in the first, 1 in the second. Then we do 2 single crochets into the same stitch, and then one in the next. So we went from 12 in the center to 24. So at the end of this round, we're going to have a total of 36 stitches. So it's 2 in the first, and then 1 in the next. And we're just going to keep doing this all the way around until we reach the end of the round, naturally. And then the following round, what are we going to do? You guessed it. We are going to just do 1 single crochet in each stitch. So this accounts for the next 2 rounds. And I will meet back up with you, and just give me a momentito and I'll be right back. Okie dokie. See, now you can see why I chose this yarn. It has this really nice, slow, rich, gradual color change. You know, from this brilliant green to a mulberry looking color. And so what I did was I continued along that round where it was 2 in the first, 1 in the next, 2 in the first, 1 in the next, etc., all the way around. Then I did another round where it was just 1 stitch in each stitch all the way around. So as you can see, it's really not suffering from a warbly pucker, you know, because it has a nice slow gradual increase. So from here on in, we're going to keep doing this increasing style pretty much for the rest of the top of the hat. You know, we're just going to keep growing out. And I'm going to write down and show you a very simple formula for keeping track. All right, be right back. Okay, so if you'll excuse the handwriting, I know it's a cross between chicken scratch and Sanskrit, but hey. All right, so basically we're following the same formula. So in the next round, you know, the one that we just did was the one that we just completed was 1 stitch in each stitch, right? The one before that was 2 in the first, and then 1 in the next. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue on in this style. So it's going to be, for the following round, it's going to be 2 single crochets into the first stitch. Then 2 single crochets, 1 in each of the next 2 stitches. So it's increments of 4. So it's a total of 36 stitches total. So it's 1, 2 in the same stitch, 3, 4. Okay. Then the next round, it's 1 stitch in each stitch. Then the next one, it's 2 single crochets in the first stitch, and then 3 single crochets, 1 in each of the next 3 stitches. So it keeps going up and up and up. So now if you look closely, it goes from, you know, 2 in the first, you know, 2 regular ones, 2 in the first, 3 regular ones. So it goes 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. And that is how it keeps progressing in the natural order of things. Now, usually, see, for this weight of yarn, this was Red Heart Super Saver, okay? So for this yarn, 72 chains wrapped around my head, that is a sufficient opening for my head, you know, on, you know, this size. You know, this is approximately 72 stitches around. Your size might be different, but it needs to be, of course, in an increment divisible by 12, naturally, because we're increasing in, you know, stitches of 12. So now what we're going to do is not worry so much about the opening, because we can make allowances for that later. So right now, what we're going to do is we're just building this up. And so what I would recommend is jotting something similar to this down, just so that you know where you're at, because sometimes it can be tricky to see the stitches where you're doing an increase, etc., etc. So this can help, you know, and I would recommend this because I do this all the time. to help guide me through and make sure I am at where I'm at. And of course, also moving up my stitch marker so that I know, oh, this is the beginning and this is the end of the round. Yay. So what I want you to do now is to continue on in this fashion and really build this up, okay? And I'm going to put my camera down and I'm going to measure this out for you. So bear with me just a moment. Okay, so measuring across, okay, it is approximately a foot across. Now, this, of course, also determines the style of the beret that you want. You could want something that is very flush with your head. You could have a really massive head of hair, and you might need to accommodate for that with a larger hat. Completely up to you. Again, this is one of those patterns that there is wiggle room in your customizing, which, again, I really can appreciate. So what you want to do is continue to build out, as I've said, in the style that I gave you with the write-up, until the circumference of your disc, as it were, is approximately 1 foot in diameter. And then we shall go from there. All right, so pause this video, grab some coffee, get stitching, and I will meet back up with you when we are ready for the next step. All right, you can do this. Okie dokie. So I've been stitching for a bit, as you can see, and right now my entire circumference is 108 stitches around. That's the 2 in the same stitch, and then 7 more stitches, so it's a total of 9 stitch increments. 9 times 12, 108. All right, now, so this is 7 inches approximately in diameter. So 7 inches times 3.14, and you got the circumference, which is roughly 22 inches, okay? And that is approximately the circumference of my head. So if you picture this in negative space, this would be how many stitches around for the opening of this hat. Now, see, here's the difference. See, the opening for this hat is approximately 72 stitches because the yarn is slightly thicker. This is the Red Heart Super Saver. The yarn is a little bit thicker. Also, instead of using a size H hook, I used a size I hook. So again, you need to keep gauge into account. So, if you're using a slightly thinner yarn and a slightly smaller hook, you're going to need more stitches. I just want to make that clear so that you don't end up overshooting your mark and end up with something the size of a pool cover, mistakenly thinking, oh, I'm doing the right number of stitches. Well, it is going to be slightly different if you're using a different yarn or a different hook size. I'm trying to clarify this and make it simple for you to understand because we're not working with an exact pattern here because everybody's gauge is a little bit different, and I respect that. So for me personally, when I make this bigger to the full extent of the top, okay, then when I'm going back in, doing decreases, going this way, I would stop at the 108 stitch mark, roughly speaking. That'll give you an idea. So all you would need to do is measure the diameter, multiply it by 3.14, and now if you don't know approximately how many stitches you would need for around your head, there's another way of doing it, which is with, say, this yarn and a size I hook, do chains in multiples of 12, and in my case, for this piece, it was 72 chains measured around the circumference of my head. Okay, so it's like, all right, that's about where I stop. This one, if I did the chain technique with, this yarn and a size H hook, it would be approximately 108. That way, if you don't already have your piece started, you can basically gauge, all right, this is where I need to stop. As far as the number of stitches for the circumference. So that's just to give you a little bit of a lowdown on how you would go about figuring out sizing. And I really hope that this information helps, because I know it can be a little bit daunting, and I know it can be even more frustrating when you're almost done with your project and then you realize you have to rip out half of it because you fudged a bit too much on the gauge. So, word to the wise, I'm trying to save you some grief, okay? So, enough of my rambling. I'm just really trying to help, clarify. I'm going to now continue stitching for, the remainder of the top of the hat, and then I will show you how to do the decreasing, and we will go back inwards. Okay. All right, so I'm going to continue on, and I'll see you in a bit. Alrighty, as you can see, I've been stitching along like crazy, and I just finished around where it's, 1 in each. The one prior, it was a total of 15 in each segment, so 2 together in one, and then another 13 more. So this actually is where I'm going to stop with the circumference of the top. Now, putting it on top of my other one, the other one is just a little bit bigger, as you can see, but I figure it's a finer yarn. I'm going to stop here. And so when you have determined how big of a dinner plate you want on your head, then you're going to do a couple of rounds where it's just one stitch in each stitch to give it just a little bit of height, if you will, just a little bit of wiggle room there. For the green version, I did 3 rounds. For this version, because it is a finer yarn, I'm going to do a total of, I think, 5 rounds where it's just one stitch in each stitch. Then we're going to do the decreasing, and I'm going to do another little write-up and show you how to do that. Basically, it's the exact opposite of what we were doing to enlarge it. So we're going to go back inwards to shrink it. So you can see all the decreases here. All right, so I'm going to do my bunch of rounds, and then I'm going to meet back up with you, and we're going to start the inward process. All right, see you in a bit. Alrighty, so I did approximately 5 rounds, so it's curling up a little bit, and so that's going to give it a little bit more height. Now, what I did was another write-up for you to help, try to clarify what we're going to do. So from now on, we're going to decrease, we're going to decrease our stitching. So in the first stitch, we're going to do 2 single crochets together, okay? So the 2 are going to become 1 stitch. Then we're going to do 13 regular single crochets, okay? Because, like I said before, it was a total of 15 in each segment around. Then 1 regular round, and then starting with 2 together, and then 12. So you can see it goes from 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. Now, when I had that initial piece where it was, where I said, picture this as the negative space, and it was 108 stitches, that's where I was at with the piece, where it was 9. So when you get to that point again, and you're down to 108 stitches, so it's, doing the 2 together, and then you have 9. Okay, so then on the following round, when you're doing just 1 in each, it's 9 in each segment. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And then after you've reached the opening to where you want it to be, then you do approximately 5 rounds or so. Again, it's not an exact science, and this really is, I would say, more of a formula on how to do a beret pattern as opposed to this is a specific beret pattern, because this does not fit on the crown of your head, okay? This is something that's much more fluid in nature, akin to a slouchy hat, where measurements are not exact, so there is more playroom. So I hope that does not disappoint all of you, that this is not, this is exactly how to do it. This is me trying to encourage you to think outside of the box as far as like, yes, I can customize this piece. I can do this based on a little bit of math, which I hate math, but yes, using a little bit of math and a little bit of ingenuity, you too can do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the decreasing process. And so what you want to do, I'll explain the doing 2 in the same stitch briefly for you. Now, this may be a little tricky to see, but I'm going to try regardless. So into our first stitch, it's going into the stitch, pulling up a loop, and then going into the next stitch, pulling up a loop, and then pulling your yarn through both of them. And that is your decrease. So you're doing 2 single crochets together. So then when you're going on your next round, that's just 1 stitch. I hope that clarifies things. So then, because I'm on this round, I'm going to then do 13 regular single crochet stitches and then do another decrease all the way around. And then the next round, it's 1 in each, just like I showed with this example here. So again, you might want to write this down, to clarify. Now, of course, you may have ended with a total of 14 stitches. So then you would start here. Or you may have ended with a total of 13 stitches. So then you would end here. You would begin your decrease here. So again, this is trying to explain how to go about it on your own, because this will empower you to come up with a solution to the problem of your own head, so to speak. I really do hope that this helps. So I'm going to continue on, and I will see you in a bit. All right, keep stitching. Ta-da! Yes, folks, it is, in fact, finally finished. Yes, and it did take a bit of finagling, and I shall explain, because, let me just get that over there, I did have to continue on the decreasing. So I did 2 together, then 8, then a regular, 7, down to 6. So my calculations were off, but that is where the learning experience comes in, trial by error. I have not used this yarn before, with that size hook. So again, it's a matter of thinking outside of the box, trying to use a little bit of creative problem solving, and that's what I'm trying to instill with you. Now, some people, who know me say, "Oh, he's an expert." Oh, no. I will never, ever, ever lay claim to that title, because the more you think you know, the less you actually do. And I believe that if you're always in a state of learning, that's how you grow. So what I ended up doing was, like I said, going down to doing 2 together, then 6 stitches. So that's actually a total of, 8 around. And then I did actually 3 rounds here with just 1 stitch in each stitch. And I am so in love with this. The autumnal colors, it's just, beautiful. I love it, you know. And this one I like too. It's a bit more robust. Pardon me. And, you know, I'm absolutely delighted. And if you decided to, you know, stick it out with me for as long as this video, I thank you again so very much, because this was a learning process. And again, it's more of a formula how to create this kind of a hat, as opposed to, strictly speaking, a pattern. And so that you can create your own. And I would be delighted if you would give it a whirl yourself. You know, if you like, you can send me a picture. I'm also on Instagram at Fiber Spider. Would love to, you know, get some feedback. Pardon me. Would love to get some feedback. Would love your comments. If you liked this video, please do hit like. If you have any questions, hey, I'm here for you. I love to hear what you guys have to say. And, you know, keep tuned in, because I'm going to keep doing more and more projects, of course. I have some shawls that I plan on doing, knitted as well as crocheted. You know, for me, really, this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I would love to explore more with you. And if you have any suggestions as what you might like to see in future projects, hey, I'm all ears, really. So listen, until my next video, you have a fabulous day. And keep in mind that knowledge is power, but sharing is caring. And I'm so happy that I was able to share this with you. So listen, stay caffeinated, stay inspired, and above all, stay stitching. Until next time, you have a great day, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.